Vega had stepped on Diablo's landmine without realizing it. And then... Yeah. That's not so bad, is it? That slimeball would have been killed by Feldway by now. At this moment, Vega's fate was sealed. In an instant, before he could even comprehend what had happened, he was beaten to the ground. Vega's surprise comes before the pain. God, what the hell did you do to me? What did you say? What the hell are you talking about? The same bottomless darkness that had been directed at Zalanis was now enveloping Vega. It was the power of emptiness coming from the depths. Diablo, like Siegen or even more so, had become able to open doors at will. Therefore, it cannot be measured by numbers. Vega instinctively realizes his fear. He finally realized that Diablo was a dangerous opponent. The pain on his cheek was unbearable. He should have lost his sense of pain by now, but the pain was so intense that it was as if it was working directly on his soul. Are you ready? No, wait. Vega tries to negotiate now, but it's too late, there is no way out. No, I won't wait. Hearing Diablo's reply, Vega is distraught. Am I going to die? Me? No, I won't. No way. In his fear, Vega's power is overloaded. It doesn't matter if he can't defeat Diablo. He unleashed his power in a desperate attempt to find a way to escape. As a result, he fell into an unexpected situation. Vega's labyrinthine entrainment is accelerated. Vega's power is to nourish the earth by putting down roots in it. As is evident from the fact that Vega is invading the labyrinth, it is using not only corpses, but all kinds of things as nutrients. Until now, Ramrus has been isolation, and Vega's immortality has not been demonstrated. But not now. The labyrinth itself has been supplying energy to Vega inexhaustibly. Moreover, it has taken the best food, Zalanis, into his body. He felt more full of power than ever before. But Diablo did not understand. Not content with half-hearted efforts, Vega pushed the limits of his power. He sucks in more power from the labyrinth, making himself bigger and bigger. Still, Vega is not satisfied. It's not enough. This is not enough power to fight this monster. Not only do I have to take this labyrinth, but I also have to feed on those hiding in the lower levels. And their desires grew endlessly. It was a suicidal act. Uncontrollable power is a destroyer of oneself. Yet Vega was obsessed with the need for more power. It was as if he was trying to escape from fear. The labyrinth was teeming with monsters. Not only Siegen, who overpowered Vega, but also this demon Diablo was too dangerous to be mentioned. One of Vega's evil dragon spawn had been so completely cut to pieces by Diablo's scissors that it could not regenerate on the spot and disappeared. Vega witnessed this with his own eyes, so there is no doubt about it. The current evil dragon spawn is stronger than the one that fought against Hinata and the others. That is why there are only 4 of them, because he thought that it would be meaningless to create more small fry. Vega was learning, but it was meaningless against Diablo. 2 evil dragon spawns were after Siegen, but they too should not be expected. They could defeat the insect lord Zalanis, no matter how weak he was. So Vega was in a hurry, as if something was driving him. He was thinking of taking more and more power and surpassing Diablo and Siegen. As a result, Vega accelerated the erosion of the labyrinth. He became one with the labyrinth as he wished, and seized the power of the labyrinth. However, there was no way he could get away with such an act. Vega's consciousness became muddled, and he fell into a runaway state in which he only recognized large energy reactions as bait. In a word, his rationality had been blown away. I'll eat you. I'm going to eat you, too, and prove that I am the strongest. Vega shouted with an expression tinged with madness, drooling from his mouth. His intimidation was the opposite of fear. Diablo let out a sigh looking at Vega. Oh dear. Needless to say, he is a threat once his power grows so large. He felt that Vega was a very boring opponent. Vega's power is troublesome since Tensura had let him go. In fact, since it has taken root in the labyrinth, it will revive if we just defeat it. Since it would continue to supply energy from the labyrinth, it had become a nearly immortal being. Worst of all, Zalanis' body was eaten. Diablo admits that this was a mistake. After all, Vega's characteristic of eating everything in Zalanis' Devastator virus has the power to control tiny dark cells with a will. Zalanis' dark cells are not, strictly speaking, cells, nor are they life forms. It just looks that way, but Vega's inclusion would have changed its properties into something more troublesome. Fortunately, Vega himself was unaware of this fact. He was lucky to be an idiot, or perhaps Diablo felt that he was a trivial opponent who was not worth fighting against. An immature fool who had no faith, no determination, and could not even control his own desires. He is an opponent with whom he can never feel any emotional highs, and there is no aesthetics in that. Even the seemingly emotionless insect lord Zalanis had a hot soul compared to Vega. If this had been the case, we would never have given it to Siegen. Diablo regrets it a little. Anyway, this is a serious situation. It was Ramrus and her team that neglected the isolation of Vega, but it was Diablo's fault for not seeing it through. He thought that the threat of Solanus disturbing his concentration was nonsense and no excuse. Diablo was determined to take responsibility for Vega's actions. Control room, are you aware of the situation? Of course I'm aware. Yeah, Rimuru-sama's in no condition to answer, so I'll take it from here. Yes sir. Now, there's one that got away. Can I take care of him? I've changed the structure of the labyrinth as a top priority. At the 100th level, in the hall where Valdor-sama was supposed to be waiting, the 4 great dragon kings and Hakura were waiting. I doubt if we can defeat them, but it will buy us some time. As Benimaru said, there is no need to defeat the evil dragon spawn, working separately. Once the main body is killed, the rest can be taken care of easily. Since they can be revived in the labyrinth, the 4 dragon kings alone would be enough. And if Hakura was there, it would be no problem to leave him to them. Kufufufu, you are Benimaru Dono, it seems that I should have minded my own business. No, I appreciate your advice. Then, don't be reckless. You must be joking. With these words, the conversation between Diablo and Benimaru ended. Diablo looked at Vega and pondered how to handle him. As the conversation between Diablo and Benimaru shows, the control room is in a state of confusion. Rimuru is the main one who is in a panic, her eyes black and white. Oh, no, 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 no. She had been fussing over the fact that her labyrinth was going to be eaten. Since they seemed to be unable to do anything but fuss, the various defense mechanisms in the labyrinth were put into action by Benimaru's instruction. He had prepared a manual for such a situation, and it proved to be useful. Benimaru said, "This reminds us of the greatness of Rimuru-sama. Well, I sometimes thought it was a bit exaggerated, but I guess we have no choice but to reflect on this situation when Rimuru-sama is away." Benimaru growled. Shunu was also drooping her head. Rimuru always acted as if the worst was possible. Most of the time he overthought it, but he was never troubled by it. He used to say, if you always assume the worst, you won't have to panic when the time comes, right? That is the reason why they have been building up their defensive capability to an excessive degree. Even with all that, they are in the situation they are in now. Benimaru could only reflect on his own immaturity, as if he were being confronted with the fact that he had not done enough, and that he had been too optimistic. Calm down, Rimuru-sama. I will cooperate with you, so let's start with the isolation of the eroding hierarchy first. Trainee was talking to Rimuru, trying to calm her down. As Benimaru, I also support Trainee, because we need her to recover quickly. That's right. Rimuru-sama always told us to make sure that we do what we can do. Rimuru-sama, I will help you, too. Beretta followed suit, saying that there was no need to be reckless. You are right, Benimaru said to himself. Hearing Rimuru's words was the only thing that could calm him down. Benimaru was very much convinced that this was the quality of a person in a higher position. Yes, that's right. I wasn't upset at all, but if everyone says so, I'll help you. The more confused they are, the more they need something to do to calm down. The more routine the task is, the more effective it will be. Rimuru, who had been in a panic because Vega was about to take away her authority, finally showed signs of recovery. Benimaru, too, was determined to fight back. The first thing to do is to confirm the current situation. First, they need to secure a safe zone. The most secure area was the control room. The wives, who were the biggest concern for Benimaru, were evacuated to the waiting room adjacent to this room. The reason for this was that it would be bad for their prenatal care to be exposed to the war situation, and they wanted to spend their time peacefully. Momiji and Alvis would be relieved to know that their children were also in the waiting room with them. There were also playthings for them to play with, so they would not be bored. He might be scolded later for treating them like children, but that's about it. So, Benimaru's anxiety is relieved in his opinion. Next is the city of Tempest, which Rimuru cherishes, but Vega could not invade it, unless the last line of defense was breached. All other exits have been sealed off so that the only way in is through the Great Hall of Valdor. Even the Guardians, who were now the main force of the group, had been sent out to defend the building. Therefore, the defense strength of each level is equal to 0, and there is no way to stop the invasion of evil dragon spawn, unleashed by Vega. Therefore, Benimaru is ready to respond to the invasion by concentrating its remaining strength in a single point, as explained to Diablo. However, it was unknown whether they would be able to counter the evil dragon spawn or not. Especially, he was worried about Hakura. He was so determined to protect his grandson that he left without hearing Benimaru's words to stop him. It was true that he could be saved in terms of strength, but Vega's evil dragon spawn was not an opponent that could be taken off guard, and it was also questionable whether he could defeat him with his swordsmanship. If it is connected to the labyrinth, it will regenerate again and again. In order to defeat the labyrinth, it is necessary to separate it from the labyrinth first. In other words, everything depended on Rimuru. Rimuru is now working as hard as she can to restore the function of the labyrinth, and to isolate Vega, as if she is trying to make up for her earlier blunder. Trainee is assisting her in various ways, and Beretta seems to be helping her with arithmetic. They can leave it to them, or rather, they have no choice but to keep an eye on them. Benimaru recalled Rimuru's words. If you imagine the worst situation, think about how you can stop it. Find a point that is not possible without it, and attack it. That way, the worst will not be the worst. He said that by repeating this process, he can stabilize the situation. With this in mind, they think about the current crisis. The worst thing that could happen is that Vega will take away the labyrinth completely. If we can prevent that from happening, we will have enough time to recover. That was the conclusion that Benimaru came to. It would be troublesome if Vega escaped from the labyrinth, but that could still be managed. They can buy time, and they can think of countermeasures before the next encounter. As long as they do not lose the labyrinth, or to be more precise, as long as their companions and the people in the city are safe, they can revive. Benimaru smiled wryly at the prospect, saying, then there's no problem. Be Benimaru-chan. You seem to have plenty of time to spare for second in command, don't you? Yes, I do. Yes, that's right, Mr. Commander-in-Chief. If you think about it, it's quite simple. What? We just need to destroy all of Vega's infiltration points. What? It's true that the labyrinth will be in trouble, but they just have to rebuild it again. They made it this far from scratch. Can they do better next time? No, that's true, but then this is not the time to hesitate. The evacuation of the residents has been completed, and as many monsters as possible have already been isolated. They understand that it's a waste of the facilities they worked so hard to build, but Rimuru also said that it's important to cut their losses. Well, that's just as well, isn't it? Ramrus nodded her head in agreement with Benimaru's proud statement. If we detach it from the main body, the evil dragon spawn will lose its regenerative ability. Let's isolate the entire area where Vega has its roots, focusing on the level where Diablo and the others are fighting. Ramrus begins to think that this may be the case when she hears these words so strongly. Being of a simple nature, once the task was clear, she was quick. She froze all operations, including the rebuilding of the labyrinth. She analyzed the safe hierarchies and selected and isolated all the suspicious hierarchies. The 71 to 80 levels of Sejin's domain, the 81 to 90 levels of Kumar's domain, and the 61 to 70 levels of Adalman's domain, where she was rebuilding the castle with the Imperial Guard. Ramrus decided to cut them all off. Adalman would be the saddest of all, but as long as there were no casualties, he would get back what he had lost. Why was I in such a hurry? Well, I don't know that, but please explain it to Adalman. Wait a minute. You told me to. What are you talking about, Ramrus-sama? You're the commander-in-chief now, aren't you? You're supposed to take full responsibility. Benimaru answered with a really nice smile. It was a good argument, and Ramrus was in a bum's ass. Clearly, however, Ramrus's expression had lightened up. Trainee and Beretta are relieved. It's alright. I'll go with you and explain to Adalman Dono. Yes, of course. I'm sure he will understand. Unlike Benimaru, you are my friends. Ramrus glanced at Benimaru while pretending to be impressed exaggeratedly. Benimaru smiles. Alright. I'll apologize to you, but please don't exclude me. Fufu, if that's the way it is, I don't blame you. Well then, let's make up with Benimaru-chan and get on with our work.